Hi, good afternoon, Leslie and Vincent. Thank you very much for accepting this interview to talk about the recording process that you have just done with Pei, our audio engineer. So, for Leslie, could you say something about how you prepare for this particular recording of this song that you've chosen?
So the main thing that I had to prepare for this was also because so this is a Chinese art song,
Yes.
and it actually isn't a language that I sing that much in, and so one of the main things I had to do actually in preparing for this was actually to go listen to recordings and actually just check in with friends who know Chinese better on the pronunciation of it. So I asked Vincent. Actually, he was the one that proposed and suggested this song, and
Yes.
so it was something different because I haven't really done much of the Chinese song repertoire. So I was happy to try this out when Vincent suggested it. But initially, I was just a little. I was a little hesitant because it's not that I haven't sung in Chinese. It's just that over the years I haven't spoken it as much. I haven't sung it as much. I think that was the main thing that I wanted to just make sure that I became more familiar with. And so in terms of prep, that was actually the main thing that I had to do. And then when Vincent and I started working together, because he knew the song a lot better, I was actually happy to, and he's known the song for I think many years already. So I was actually happy to take on his suggestions for how he felt the song should go. And so we tried out several things. And I think over the course of the few rehearsals that we had, we eventually found something that an interpretation or a way of performance that I think we were both happy with.
What were some of these musical things that you remember overcoming or tackling?
Well, I think for me, I tend to sometimes I tend to sometimes over-energize what I do, and then as a result, sometimes the sense of legato or finding a slightly gentler texture and quality. Sometimes it's something I can overlook, and so I think Vincent wanted me to try something much more lyrical, much more flowing, and I think something that fit what the mood of the song was. So I think eventually arriving at that was something that, for me at least, took a while.
Yes.
Yeah, but once I got more familiar with the music, I think just find that gentler flow was a lot easier.
Yes.
But it's just with this idea of longing for home.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for Vincent, I would like to find out firstly, since Leslie said you sort of suggested this piece, what do you know about this piece that make you inclined towards including it in the repertoire?
Well, first of all, it fits the theme perfectly. I think that's the
theme of home.
What,
Yeah.
what does the song say?
this kind of homesickness kind of thing. And even though I've performed it several times before, I have never quite caught the quite understand the lyrics until I asked a friend who knows about what the lyrics are not exactly very modern Chinese kind of lyrics. So there are certain connotation like where they say 清明节 and what does 清明节 entails, there's a 捐 and which is like this cuckoo bird, like what does it entail in Chinese literature, which I don't quite understand until I ask a friend.
Yes.
So that all this there's kind of it sort of points toward, I'm sort of understand, it sort of points toward homesickness, but the thing is, to what extent does this 清明 means about homesickness?
Yes.
How does this cuckoo means in Chinese literature means for homesickness?
Yes.
That I had to find out in detail for this project. Yes.
Yes, so there are some symbolic knowledge that is required when performing this Chinese music. What are some of the musical differences or interpretation that both of you have undertook, as opposed to performing a romantic song from the West?
I don't see that much difference. It's
In terms of musical interpretation.
I don't see that much, at least in my own playing. I don't see that much of difference.
Because you said the composer was actually Western trained, right? The composer.
Not just Western trained, American trained.
Okay.
It's not the typical Chinese when trained under the communists, like those they were like going to
In the
like,
conservatories.
they would in the early days. I guess they would have gone to Moscow to study. This guy went to Oberlin, then Yale.
Yes.
So he was American trained,
Yes.
not specifically
Yes.
communist
Yes.
conservatory trained. So
Well,
so the music style is not the kind of outgoing in your face Chinese.
yes.
So he actually described it as almost very Schubert-like, the way he was when he first was talking to me about the piece, which I thought was actually interesting. And if you listen to the texture, I think it really does have that sort of there's a certain quality to it which kind of sets it apart from perhaps what you might think a typical Chinese art song might be, where you get a much more virtuosic piano part almost. I feel, but this one is it's very lyrical. It's very gentle.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not Chinese that throw in your face kind.
Yeah, I think because a lot of the Chinese art songs that I've heard, the everything is very virtuosic. The piano part is incredibly so it's almost like everything is there. I mean, it's great for showing off and great to be impressed, but the almost simplicity and the simplicity of this particular one kind of makes it different.
So this guy is a rather special composer that I like a lot. There's quite a few of his stuff that I really do admire.
Yes.
So that's why I liked it. That's why I suggested this to Leslie to at least try it out and see how it goes.
Is this the first time you are recording this piece?
Yes, I am.
With the singer, and how do you come to the record? How do you present this piece in the recording studio, as opposed to a live performance?
You performed it live before, right? You said.
I perform it, but I don't think there's any difference. I just play. I just play.
Or do you feel like, okay, when was the last time you performed it?
Oh,
that was like 10 years ago?
10 years ago.
Do you feel like you approach it differently now, 10 years on?
Because I understand the lyrics better. I understand music.
So do you feel like you have a deeper connection to it somehow?
Yes. Yeah. So I just look at it and find new meaning in the.
Did the music change with your gradual understanding of the
yes, definitely.
How so?
I think as I got older. I mean, the understanding of things got better. The idea of. I think yesterday I was telling Leslie there's this. It sounds rather obvious, but the understanding of homesickness comes with this feeling of being loneliness. So I was. It never occurred to me. I mean, it sounds obvious now, but it never occurred to me before that. But so that was what I was trying to portray in what I was trying to do. Also the bloody cuckoo bird, which took me a while.
Well, he was practicing this piano interlude, where the sound of the cuckoo bird was there. But I know he spent a lot of time there trying to find just the right texture for it. Because I think it's written with staccato markings actually. And I think at one point we were deciding how sustained it should be or how staccato it should be. But I mean, there is a staccato marking in the piano part at that point. So I think he was experimenting different ways just to bring out that particular piano interlude in the middle of the song.
Yes, I was almost obsessed about getting that thing the way I liked it. But I don't know. I just hope it works.
Okay, if I could digress slightly, that was there a sort of gender element in the interpretation of this particular romantic song, where you took a gentler or softer approach as opposed to the Chinese more military way of belting the song out, whether it was composed in the same period. Did y'all feel the more mellow, the softer way of treating the music?
Eventually, yes. I think initially I was just singing through it. Perhaps with a stronger sense of just a stronger musical feeling. And Vincent was the one at the last rehearsal where he actually asked me to try it almost crooning. And then I tried that, and actually we both felt like, okay, that actually, when I sort of kind of thought differently about it, that actually brought out a different quality that I think we both felt suited this idea of longing for home that the song talks about.
Is it very distinct from the Russian repertoire, Russian voice color that you have adopted?
Well, okay, so last week I did a recording of a Tchaikovsky song, and so I would feel like that's it's different. I feel like this one's much more subtle. This one's a bit more subtle. The feeling is different. This one feels less. I guess the emotion, the depth of the emotion is still there. It's not
so muscular.
Yeah, I guess so. It's not so angsty.
Yes,
perhaps. It's not so. It's a gentler sense of yearning and desiring. Whereas the Tchaikovsky song I did last week was way more emo and angsty than this one. Also, it's just the music is just written differently.
Yes. So does it, for the both of you, does it still carry a masculine effect?
I never thought of it in any masculine or feminine. I just thought of just playing the thing.
For me, I think perhaps.
Yeah. So you accompany a female singer on this song?
Yeah, female saying yes.
I think there are certain gestures in it that perhaps are softer. Well, that at one point, actually, sort of the climax. One of the climaxes of the piece is where he talks about asking a flower, that's falling, and the musical line is also descending at the time. And so Vincent was the one that actually asked whether I could sort of do it, to sort of create that idea of, let's say, a flower just sort of gently floating down through the air. And I think perhaps that is one. It's finding that quality was something I guess I had to work on a little bit more.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's just a gentler quality.
Graceful.
Sort of, but it's just to really bring out the word painting that he had put into that idea of that falling flower at that point. Yeah.
I didn't think of it as a masculine or feminine thing. It's more like they say meow 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 liu shui. It's like you just follow the ripples of the river. So it goes in a not a angular manner, but in a much more ripple feeling. So that's
the contours of nature.
Yes. So that's what I.
That's true. I think the emotional state or the emotional quality of the song are sort of, nature is used to. I guess to sort of bring out the emotional quality. So it's more there's I guess a transference of that internal emotion into the quality, into the elements of nature around.
Okay, finally, how was the recording process with the audio engineer in terms of some of the delightful moments or some of the tricky moments that happened earlier in the past hour? Were there some of these?
It's pretty uneventful. We just went in, recorded it 3 times, sort of, and then we just listened to
3 times.
We just sort of did 3 takes, and also it's a short song, so I think that we were able to do it pretty quickly.
So you went to listen to the recorded versions. What were you listening out for?
Was my own playing.
Exactly.
Oh yes, I was listening for my singing.
Exactly. More precisely. More precisely. What
I think I was trying to. I want to calculate this kind of loneliness, this kind of silence, this kind of pregnant pause.
Yes.
So
do you achieve it when you listen to the recorded version?
I was sort of happy about it.
Yes.
Could it be better? I don't know. Maybe in 10 more years I'll be happy about it. But for now, I think it's okay. I think it's okay.
Yes. So likewise, so in a short run, the first time, the second time, and the third time, after listening to the first and second take, what do you sort of try to do differently in the subsequent takes?
I think the main thing that Vincent did was, I think you used the soft pedal for the last take, because I think he kind of felt like he was wondering whether or not the piano part was a bit too brilliant for what he wanted to convey. So for the final take, he actually changed how he was using the pedals. But I think ultimately we did decide that the one without the soft pedal was better. So maybe, I don't know, maybe there was a slightly more masculine quality about that. Yeah.
Just have to make do with. I mean, the one without soft pedal seems more colorful more than the one without. So I thought stick to the one without the soft pedal.
How did the audio engineer contribute to the interpretation and recording?
We just asked her whether or not she could do certain things in terms of the balance. Ultimately, she said it was fine. So in the end, that saves us the trouble of trying to do another take, because, like for example, in my part, listening to my voice, I felt that in the second take where the soft pedal wasn't used, I felt that in the lower parts where I was singing lower, it got a little more buried within the sound. And in the other take with the soft pedal being used, I felt the vocal line was coming out, it was more present. But she said that she was able to just sort of adjust the balance after the recording. So in the end, that's part of also why we decided to go with the second take.
Good, thank you very much. Is there anything else that you would like to add regarding the recording process?
No, that was good. I think he was happy to finally record this piece.
Great.